and welcome to a special podcast thing. And I have a couple guests with me today, and one is Greg. Frequent flyer miles for Greg. Welcome back, Greg.
Well, you see, I'm kind of contractually obligated since Taylor owns my life rights, so
I don't know about that, but but yeah. So yeah. And also with Greg and I today, we have Pete Dorr from Pete's Game Room Forum. Thank you for coming, Pete.
Thanks for having me on.
So, yeah, so this was kind of a random thing done, so I am going to be stumbling over myself, as I usually am. But I guess we're going to jump from different things, and since we are RPG lovers here, we'll, of course, dabble into RPGs. And with that being said, I would like to know from you, Pete, is what got you really into RPGs? Because we know how Greg got into RPGs, and I know how I got into RPGs, but how did you get into RPGs?
So the quick rundown of it is, as a kid, I was heavily into the Pokemon games on the original Game Boy. And playing them, I don't ever think I truly realized I was playing an RPG, as a lot of kids probably didn't realize playing the original Pokemon games, as that was probably many of their first RPGs. But getting into my first, I guess you could say, I don't want to diss Pokemon, but my first true RPG would have been Final Fantasy VII. Now, how I came to discover that game was probably when I was around the age of, oh, well, let's see, 2000, I was probably around 13 years old, somewhere around there. And my grandfather had a PlayStation 1, and he always used to go to Blockbuster and whatnot and get some used games, but he'd also buy new games from the flea markets and everything. And one of the games he picked up was Final Fantasy VII. And at the time, I had no idea what that game was or what it was about. All I knew is that the cover looked pretty cool. Guy on the cover with his sword drawn over his back, and the back of the game was kind of unrevealing. I couldn't tell what kind of game it was. So I booted that up, and at first I was like really impressed by the FMV graphics, and when it came to the gameplay, I got into a random battle. Being this was my first true turn-based RPG, I had no clue what the hell was going on. I was so confused. I was like, what kind of game is this? What are these numbers popping up above these guys' heads, and why am I waiting to attack? I just didn't truly understand what was going on. So I could never I could never beat the bombing mission portion of the game. I never got past the boss fight or whatnot because I just didn't have the knowledge of RPGs to get by that. Because as a kid, I tended to gravitate towards the platformers and the adventure games, because I grew up with, I started with ColecoVision, but then I moved on to the Sega Genesis. And as we all know, the Sega Genesis had RPGs, but they were kind of few and far between, because I didn't get a Super Nintendo until a little bit later on, and we know that the Super Nintendo had quite a bit more RPGs to choose from in turn-based RPGs, while the Genesis mainly just had, Phantasy Star, Shining Force, and whatnot, which I never played those. Funny thing is, though, my grandfather also had a couple of RPGs on the Genesis. He had Ys 3, and that game just kicked my ass. I didn't get very far in that. But I guess you can say, yes, my first RPG experience was with Final Fantasy VII. Now, there was just something about 7, though, that really enthralled me. And I borrowed the first disc. I brought it home because I eventually got a PlayStation. But I played it at his house, and I kind of just left it alone for a little bit. And then when I got my PlayStation that year, I borrowed disc 1. And because I really wanted to find out, what the heck is this game all about? So I spent some time with it. And, no, sorry, let me back up a little bit. After playing 7, I kind of came around to figuring out, okay, I found out all about the RPG world, so I started getting into more RPGs. And when I got my first PlayStation, one of the first games I got with it was Wild Arms 1.
nice.
So that was the first RPG I ever bought for the system, I guess you can say. Because after playing Final Fantasy VII, I'm like, wow, I want to get more into these RPGs, so I got that. And then I borrowed disc 1 of Final Fantasy VII, and I started just powering through the game, and I eventually came to beat it. And that's what really introduced me. I guess that was a good way to start off with RPGs is Final Fantasy VII. And, the game gets a lot of bashing, but I have a deep connection to it because it was my truly first experience with that type of RPG, cinematic RPG, huge storyline. Just, could you imagine starting with Final Fantasy VII? I mean, I know you guys probably started with something other than 7, but that's how my experience started with it.
Yeah, I was about to say, Greg, he had mentioned before, you can talk about it again real quick if you want to, like, Greg, what was your first true RPG experience?
It was, like I said, I started on the Sega Master System because I had a dad and a brother who played games, and just by the process of elimination, we just played a lot of Master System games. It used to be a ritual every Friday night to go rent out a game, and my dad just came across a game called Ultima 4 that would change everything because we looked at the label and it said adventure role-playing game. Now, to be perfectly honest, I really loved the music, but I was so young. I think I was about 5 or 6 years old. I couldn't get into it. But then my brother did something really cool and picked up a little-known game called Fantasy Star. And that was better than anything else. It's better than Saturday morning TV, just better than anything. I used to just park myself and watch that game to dusk till dawn, and I even got to play a little bit, but Fantasy Star was my first true RPG, and I was so happy that it was, because it did so much for the genre, even though it was a very early game. Like, it was one of the very first games, I think, that tells a cinematic-esque story, just with the single frame cutscenes and the fluid animation of the battles. I just really got into it, and the music and the story and just everything. I can talk about Fantasy Star all day. But just to add on about Final Fantasy VII with Pete, that game did a lot for the genre because RPGs was very, very niche back in those days. And as he said before, Genesis games, Mega Drive games were very few and far between. And as someone who's actually finished all the English Mega Drive games, thanks to a good friend who owned a game store, had every one of them. But getting back to Final Fantasy VII, it really did bring the genre out to new audiences. And for me, being an old hat at RPGs, it wasn't so much a gaming revolution. I kind of thought of it as an evolution of the genre. It just did things that step forward in terms of presentation, like the quality of music, the quality of graphics, how long the story went for, and just the content and the side quests. And I must admit, I think we only hired it out once, and then we just bought it, and we played it all through 1997, just doing everything, getting every bit of materia, mastering it, every item, you name it, we did it.
And it's funny, because my first playthrough of 7, I didn't really play around with the materia at all, so my first time through, I was probably playing with like some of the worst materia combinations out there, because I want to correct myself, I was 10 at the time when I played it, and I just didn't really get too into the whole stat-based stuff of it, or equipping this materia with this one so that, you get more HP and all that stuff. I kind of just threw on whatever gave me a cool-looking spell or a cool-looking summon. I was all for that. So in the next couple of playthroughs through the game, it was more of a different experience. And, 7, though, at the time, I wasn't really online, searching through websites for best RPGs to check out. So it took me some time to discover some of the better ones that were out there, because I'm like, okay, for my N64, Quest 64, have any of you ever played that?
Yes.
I'm like,
Yes.
I like RPGs now. Let me go ahead and get this RPG for my N64. Oh my god. That was, what a mistake that was. So it took me a little bit to kind of find out what some of the more, better RPGs that are out there. It wasn't really until I started discovering games like Legend of Dragoon or Xenogears on PS1, and then eventually, the PS2 would come out, and it took a while for some decent RPGs to come out on there. Actually, you know what, that brings a memory of mine. Do any of you, I know what it is, but do any of you remember what the first turn-based RPG was on PS2 for America?
Oh god.
Was it Instrumental Fantasia by Konami?
Yes. Yeah, you got it. So, oh my god, RPGs, and I couldn't wait to get my hands on this game because it was the first turn-based RPG to come out on the system. Oh, yet another letdown. So I had this trail of letdowns for discovering RPGs. And for those that don't remember, Ephemeral Fantasia, it was this it was a traditional turn-based RPG, but it tried the tool with the gameplay mechanic of, what happens in the game world is based upon like a time. So it has like a real world time to it. So night and day passes and certain NPCs won't appear in the game unless it's a certain time during the day. But it was just so drawn out and boring at times, but I tried to like force myself to like it because I'm like, I really enjoy RPGs now, but I just want more from my RPGs. So that's kind of maybe why PS2 ended up being one of my favorite systems out there, because I really got deeply involved with a lot of RPGs on that system, like Shadow Hearts, Dragon Quest VIII, Grande 3 I especially really loved. And Final Fantasy X wasn't one of my favorite RPGs out there, but it was very impressive at the time.
And then 12, you seem to really like 12 as well.
Of course, 12. Yeah, 12 is it's a touchy subject for a lot of people, but that's one of my favorite games on the PS2, and it's one of my top Final Fantasy games, mainly because I enjoyed the combat of the game. Yeah, the story was lacking, and some people just absolutely hated the characters, but just the world itself and the whole gameplay, the control that you have over your party members, and the way that you can tool your party to meet your demands. The only limiting factor to the battle mechanics of the game that I didn't like was that the party was only limited to 3, and in my opinion, you always needed a tank and a healer, so that really only left you with one spot to kind of customize your party the way that you wanted to. I'm sure there's different gameplay styles that people use for their party, but I think 12 could have benefited so much from just one more extra party slot.
You make a good point about that, because something that I noticed when I was playing Xenoblade is having that same issue. Because honestly, I've not even really touched 12. I watched a friend play it for about 50 hours. And I was like, okay, I've had enough. But like Xenoblade kind of has that same issue, is that you need somebody to heal, because the thing is in that game there's no items. You don't have potions and things like that, so you need somebody that can heal. And your main character has some healing spells, and there are other characters that heal, but you need a healer for God's sakes in that game.
So does Xenoblade give you the option, like Final Fantasy 12, to kind of tell your AI characters, like if you're below a certain threshold of HP, to then cure, or is it sort of like they act on their own? Do you have any control over that?
You can command them to do different things. They're really spot on about healing you when they can, because their action, or their spell. Well, no, they're not really spells, but their skills that they use. They have it's very MMO-ish, where it's a cooldown.
Yeah.
And so they're pretty quick about, you need healing, boom, healed. But like they can't always be on top of it to heal you if you're down below 60%. It doesn't have as much customizability as 12, with all the different. I don't remember what was that system called. Oh.
For 12?
Yeah, where you could tell them to heal you when you're below 60%.
The Gambit.
The Gambit system.
Yes,
right?
yeah, Gambit. Mm-hmm.
And so it's not as detailed as that, but the AI is good enough to be like, hey, or you could always be the healer if you like being a healer, or that sort of thing.
The other problem with 12 with the Gambit system is that once you reach maximum level with your characters in terms of maxing out the Gambit system, they all have the ability to, they all have the option to have they all have the same Gambit board, I guess you could say. So any character you can make into anything that you want. And in my opinion, I don't know, I kind of miss the feeling of each character sort of has their own predefined role. So the fact that I can make my healer character that you think should be the healer into like a damage dealer, I know some people might like that, but to me, it might have been a little bit too flexible in that way. That's just my opinion, though.
I thought they remedied that in the Zodiac.
Yeah, I never played. Well, it never came out over here, so I can't really speak on that.
Okay, because one of because I was talking to a good friend of mine, is actually one of the friends that I watched play it. He was like, "Oh, you should pick up the Zodiac one because you never played it." And I was like, "I don't know," because I had I felt that with that Gambit system, how you could make everybody do whatever they want, kind of I wouldn't say bastardize the whole thing, but it feels a little less unique for each character. So
That's how I kind of feel. Yeah.
yeah, and so he was like, "Oh, you should get the Zodiac. Is it Zodiac System or Zodiac Battle?" Yeah, but Final Fantasy 12 Zodiac, and I was like, but I never picked it up. I just there's so many damn games, and it's just so hard, especially with RPGs.
Well,
So,
that's a question that I have for you guys. When it comes to customization of your characters in RPGs, how picky are you when it comes to that? Are you okay with an RPG that sort of has a predefined, when you reach this level, you get this ability, this spell, or are you okay with that, or do you kind of prefer being able to choose the way your character develops?
Greg, if
Yeah, I think it's basically depending. It depends on the game and how it connects to the game. I'm old school in the fact that most of the RPGs I played, you level up, you had the chance of learning an ability. That's pretty much my bread and butter, and that's what I kind of like. But of course, you play games where some games where you buy spells or you find spells, or you have to learn them through some other way. Uh, I I think it's the beauty of RPGs that you have so many different games and it's a different experience in terms of story and of course the system. I mainly prefer just leveling up to get abilities because most of my favorite games that's the way it goes. Except for Suicune where you actually do have to buy and ultimately get your runes because that's where the power of Suicune lies in is the runes you get given to them and they tie into the story so that's what I kind of like about that. But as customization with characters go, like when you said that, the first game that just went in my head is Dragon Quest IX because that's probably one of the reasons I love that game so much is you can customize your character to be a specific role and you can lose yourself for hours just grinding, not just for EXP and gold, but just for those skill points so you can allocate them and mix and match. And I think I must have grinded for about 30 hours just trying to get my party the way I liked it, and in the end, I was quite pleased. Yeah, if you play that game, yeah, you can just lose yourself doing that.
the
That kind of,
I'm
go
sorry,
ahead.
you can go.
I was going to say that kind of reminds me when I was playing the Etrian Odyssey games, especially just recently Etrian
Oh
Odyssey
yes,
3, where you can grind, and that's all the game is about, is just
yeah,
grinding, but where you get enough skill points to really deeply customize your characters, where, you don't just have a tank, but you can decide if he wants to be good against magic defense or
yep,
physical defense, or, you know, I just love a game can be nothing but grinding. I don't care. It can have the weakest story ever, which the Etrian Odyssey games are not really known for their story, but as long as
no,
it has an addictive customization factor for me in terms of the makeup of my party, I just find something so addictive about deciding what my party makeup is going to be and knowing that it's possibly unique to just myself and nobody else has this party makeup. That's what I find fun about those games.
yeah. I've played Etrian Odyssey 1. I got it last Christmas, and I know what you mean. Yeah, it's strange because when I went into that game, this really doesn't have a story, but the game was very challenging in terms of the enemies. That's the first thing I could see playing that game is the enemies are so difficult that you will need to grind to even stand a chance, and the boss battles are so insane. But I enjoy grinding, and I think Etrian Odyssey is one of those games that kind of showcases that. But yeah, like you said, I customized my characters to a fine tune. I might have made mistakes, but that's the thing about those games. If you made mistakes, you can go back and do them. But I was happy with the party I had, but I've kind of put it down, and I need to pick it up again in a later date.
If I were you, I would honestly skip the first one, skip the second one for now, go straight into the third, because the third has made so many improvements over the previous two. They've actually added in a pretty decent story to it, and they've redefined the class system so that certain classes are not too overpowered, and they actually have sort of like a sub-job system, so you can mix and match two jobs on one character. So it really adds a lot of customization with that. But I was going to also mention when it comes to grinding, I have a weird way of looking at it. I kind of look at it like reading a book. I'm one of those people where I like the folds in the spine of my book. I like to be able to say to myself, wow, look how much I've progressed through reading this book and just the wear and tear on it. So I look at RPGs the same way where, I look at my timer of the game. I can say, wow, look at this. I've invested 20 hours into the game and I've grinded for these many hours and advanced my characters this far. So it's sort of a weird satisfaction that I have from knowing time invested and the reward that comes out of it, which a little gripe of mine, well, not so much little, it's actually stopped me from playing quite a few RPGs before, as weird as it may sound, but RPGs that don't include a time counter really annoy me. I don't know if you guys are kind of as picky as me when it comes to that.
I can, yeah, like that kind of like, because I feel the same way as you do, Pete, about liking to see the progression of playing the game. Or, you know, for books, like, I love to read books. I don't know if you guys read very often or if you have really the time to, but, like, right now I'm reading through the Song of Ice and Fire series. And I'd read the first two books. It's Game of Thrones. They made the HBO special and everything. So, like, the first book's Game of Thrones, and then you have Clash of Kings, Storm of Swords, Feast for Crows, Dance with Dragons that just came out. And I read the first two books when I was in high school, so I was like, oh yeah, I love these books. And then forgot about them when I went to college. And finally getting back into it, and it's just, I love just holding books and, you know, having the bent pages and everything, because it gives its character. And as just weird as that might sound, grinding and, you know, playing a game for X amount of time, it gives those characters a sense of value to me, I guess.
It's like you look at each chapter in the book as like a level up. It's like, okay, one more chapter out of the way, level up, you know?
yeah, exactly. And before leaving the customization thing, I did want to mention, I'm kind of with Greg a little bit, is that, like, since I'm very old school, the whole leveling up to get a skill didn't really ever, you know, that's what I grew up with. So, you know, I'm not against that or anything, or I'm not against learning new skills. And, like, for example, I really like how Xenosaga Episode 1, how you took skill points and you allotted them to kind of make your own, and you have the branching tree. I don't mind branching trees for skills, as well as for like Final Fantasy IX. I love Final Fantasy IX, and I like how equipping.
Oh, I love that. I was going to mention that too.
Yeah, I love that. I thought that was absolutely fantastic. So.
It gives you a reason to grind for not just levels, but to learn the skills. Yeah, and I'm going to say I'm not against RPGs that give you skills and stuff in a linear fashion. In fact, sometimes that can be a lot of fun, because that way you can't look ahead and see what's coming. So as you level up, you get skills and spells and whatnot that you had no idea you were going to get. So there's always a level of surprise to it.
I call it an unsuspected reward. It's just like, wow, I've leveled to this point of time and got an award. And I think Shining Force does that more than anything, because you level up your mages and just out of the blue you learn a new spell and you just go, fuck yeah. And you just want to get out there and use it. It's such a great feeling.
In Trails in the Sky, for example, when you level up, you learn new skills. And also you can learn new, like, ultimate... I don't know, what do they call the ultimate skills?
S-Arts.
S-Arts. Okay, they just call them S-Arts. I didn't know if there's... I forget. Yeah. But you can... You learn those after a certain level, and you're like, oh, you know, next battle you can't wait just so you can, like, rock the hell out of something with a new skill. So, buy the game, Pete.
Yeah. Between the two of you, it was funny because I was talking to Taylor before you came on, Greg, and I'm like, I need to get that game. Between you and Greg telling me about, you know, talking about that game constantly. But I was telling Taylor, you know, I still feel so, it's an intimidating game because I know what I'm getting involved in. I know I'm going to get involved in this RPG that takes at least like 40, 50 hours to beat. And it's got a, I know the story is a very big part of it, so there's a lot of talking involved. And I know I know if I buy this game right now, there's a very slim chance I'll ever finish it. There's just something about me now that prefers RPGs that are 20, 30 hours long. The epic days of playing through a 70-hour RPG are kind of over, except for maybe Skyrim. Can't wait for Skyrim. That's, you know, looking forward to putting in Final Fantasy XI, but that's another story. But Skyrim, you know, some games I can just lose myself in, but I'm finding it harder and harder to, you know, be able to invest that amount of time. Like, I feel bad, Persona 4. I invested, you know, about 40 something hours in that game, and I got stuck on a boss. So it wasn't like I just quit, because I lost interest. I quit because this one freaking boss was kicking my ass, and I just wasn't leveled
Which
up
boss
enough.
was that?
It's the 8-bit boss.
Oh, yes.
Mhm.
Yes, I know that boss too well. Persona 4 was my favorite game of 2009, and I kind of just lost myself for about a month playing that game. And
Such a good game.
I have no qualms about saying it's one of the best RPGs on the system, and I love it to death.
Well, have you played Persona 3?
Yes, I've been Persona 3.
So you'd wholeheartedly recommend 4 over 3, right?
4 over 3, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I couldn't really get into 3, but 4 was another monster. That game, the characters, no other game, maybe besides, I'm really big into Final Fantasy XIII's character development, but Persona 4 in particular, the character development in that game is just unlike any game I've played before, and that's one of the main things I recommend it for. Now I forgot what I was going to say before.
That's all right. That's all right. I was to say what
Can I interrupt just for 2 seconds?
no,
Just
you
getting
cannot.
no.
No, please speak up.
Just getting back to Trails in the Sky. One thing I want to give a shout out to Europeans. Ghostlight is going to release a European version of the game, and I have no doubt they're going to release their own special edition. So that's pretty cool to UK and European fans. And I'm probably going to get it just to go next to my Exceed box set.
But there's no news on the second one in the trilogy coming out yet, right?
Yeah, they want to do it. Exceed wholeheartedly wants to do it. There's just an issue with the downloadable version because that game is 2 UMDs. And 2 UMD games are... I don't think they've ever done a downloadable version of that because it's very
Screw the
tricky.
download.
Yeah. But I think it's a case of the fact that the game is 2 UMDs. It's friggin' long as hell, and I haven't played it, but Taylor has, and I'm guessing there's like an insane amount of dialogue compared to the first chapter.
Well, like the thing is, I know why it's 2 UMDs. It's just because there's a lot more, not just like in the first one you're traversing on foot a lot to different areas, but in this one they have you just bus your way or you taxi your way through the different areas, and there's just so many other like areas and new areas and stuff to go to that they had to add in a second UMD to not only do that but to add some actions and cutscenes and stuff. Not like animated cutscenes, but cutscenes.
How many other PSP games, if any, have been on 2 UMDs?
Well, Type 0 coming out in October. Final Fantasy Type 0's got 2 UMDs.
Yeah, that looks like it needs 2 UMDs.
See, my question is, now, we all know Xseed, they put out a lot of RPGs, and the RPG crowd tends to be the ones that like to buy their games in physical form, and, especially Xseed, they release a lot of collector's editions. My question is the digital downloads of Xseed's games, especially RPGs, are they really making that much money off of it to make that the main reason why they can't release it yet? I mean, you would think that many people that want a Trails in the Sky game, the sequel, to come out, that they're going to buy the physical game.
Yeah, I'm going to buy the physical game. I'm not too sure what the problem is per se, but I think they want to test their foot in different waters before they go back into Falcom. They might want to get extra money so they can fund that project because they're doing Solar Torobo on the DS and the new Yuji Naka game that just got released. Xseed's going to bring that out.
I say oh god because I just imported Solar Torobo, the collector's edition from Japan, and then like literally right after I import it, it's announced that it's being localized for Europe, which pissed me off because it's DS is region free and I could just import it if I wanted to, and now it's coming to the United States. I guess the good news is that the collector's edition probably has no chance in hell in coming out in the US, but still I paid quite a bit for the import version, mainly because the game is playable without knowing Japanese. It's quite straightforward, but it does look very impressive. And Solar Torobo, for those that don't know, is the I guess you could say, spiritual sequel to Tail Concerto on PS1, which is sort of like an action game, action RPG.
What's in that collection exactly, if you don't mind?
The collector's edition?
Yeah, the collector's edition. What's in that?
Let me open it up right now for you. I think it just comes with... I got it right over here, so...
I saw that in your last video. It's a beautiful collection.
It comes in a cardboard box, and then we have the game itself, an art book, soundtrack CD. And the soundtrack CD has 24 tracks.
Nice.
And the art book,
Yeah.
let me see, it's a pretty hefty little art book, has 100 pages. And it looks like it's pretty nice if you're in Japan because it has interviews and quite a bit of text, but it's a decent art book.
Mm. Now, now that kind of on this collector's edition bit, I had a question for you guys. What is your favorite collector's like edition that you own? I think I can answer that one. Mine, real quickly, is.
I know what you're gonna say.
What do you think I'm gonna say?
I know the numbers, and I'm thinking it might be 776.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's the Fire Emblem Thrakia 776 limited edition, the deluxe box. Have you have you seen that, Pete?
I might have, but I don't recall what it looks like.
It's in a cardboard box. It's kind of it's designed almost like a treasure chest, I would say. Well, maybe not a treasure chest, but it at least looks like it's wooden. And inside it has the. Oh, let me grab it real quick.
All I can say is once I go to Japan, that's the first thing I'm buying.
If you can find it, because I've seen only 2 of these, and they were both at the same time when I bought this one. It's kind of hard to find. But inside it has 2 plushies, one of a Pegasus and then one of a dragon. And then it has this divider that has the cover of the game, or what they would eventually use for the cover of the game, and then just kind of a little scenery images on the sides. And then it has a cloth map of the kingdom, as well as 9 cards of 9 of the characters in the game. However, the game came on a memory, like the SF memory cartridge.
The downloadable service.
Right. So, like, they didn't actually have a mass-produced version of the game when they sold the deluxe first. And because the deluxe pack was so sought after, people, like, the Nintendo's like, alright, let's actually, make the standard box and booklet and everything for it. And so with the memory cartridge, it has the little sticker for the game, as well as some other little stickers that you can use to put on the game. And then the last thing, which is just awesome as hell, is a VHS tape
Yeah.
of the world of Fire Emblem. And it goes in and talks about, like, the first half of the tape talks about Seisen no Keifu, which is the game, the genealogy of a holy war, which is actually takes place around this game. And yeah, that's like a game for a whole nother discussion. But in the Fire Emblem world, well, not Fire Emblem world, but a lot of fans consider Genealogy of a Holy War like the creme de la creme, like the best Fire Emblem game. And the first half of the game talks, the VHS talks about that game, and also then goes into the second half of it talking about, like, all the new stuff in Thrakia and all, and like the new things they added, like carrying units, making enemy units surrender, and just all a bunch of different things. And it goes about like 20 minutes or so. There's actually a video on YouTube that somebody put that has Chinese subtitles, which is really funny. So I'm thinking that someone, would have to, like, put an English subtitled version of it or something in the future to finally get one of those out there. But yeah, that's my favorite collector's box set thing.
I don't have like a definitive, like, oh my god, this is the best collector's edition I own, but I have a couple of ones that are kind of up there for different reasons. One that comes to mind would probably be the collector's edition of Demon Souls for PS3. The reason being is we all know every time people talk about Demon Souls is how hard the game is and all that. Well, the only way to get the official strategy guide for Demon Souls was to get the collector's edition, which became exceedingly rare and expensive after the release, after they sold out. And I have to say, the strategy guide that they included, along with the art book and the soundtrack, was one of the most useful strategy guides I've ever had for any game, because that game was very hard, and having a free strategy guide come, well, I guess you can say it was free, kind of paid for the collector's edition, but it was totally worth it having that. Another collector's edition that comes to mind is the Amazon exclusive collector's edition for Persona 4, which was only on Amazon. You had to pre-order it, and it came with a teddy plush, came with an art book, came with a calendar, came with an extra soundtrack CD. For those of you that actually bought just the game, it came with one of the soundtracks, but if you pre-ordered, it came with the second part to the soundtrack. So that was very cool. And one of my other answers is actually for 2 games that are not out yet. Well, one's coming soon in America, and that's Catherine, which has probably the craziest collector's edition to come out in America.
Yeah.
Okay, it comes in a pizza box. If that wasn't crazy enough, it includes a pair of underwear, a pillowcase, and a t-shirt. And of course it comes with an art book and a soundtrack. Atlas just went way out with that. So I pre-ordered. Who the hell is ever going to wear... I don't think anybody's going to use the pillowcase or the underwear, I hope. Everybody's going to keep that...
Cosplayers will.
Cosplay, but for the most part, people are just going to keep it in the box. But still, it's so out there and outlandish, especially no one ever thought Catherine was going to come to America, but it did, let alone in this crazy special edition. And lastly, how could I not mention? I never thought this day would come, but the collector's edition for the Eco Shadow of the Colossus collection for Japan. Now, I don't know if America's getting it yet, but all I know is I'm importing it anyway. It might be, it might not sound that spectacular. It's just going to be both games. For some unknown reason, they're deciding to sell the games separately in Japan for $40 each, as opposed to in the bundle that's, they're selling them both together in the United States. But both games separately in a box with a book that is kind of unknown what's in there as of yet, but I'm assuming the book is going to have artwork and interviews and behind the scenes and all kinds of information between both games. But that collector's edition is so special to me because Eco is my favorite game of all time, but the game had never really quite reached the sales that, it didn't have high sales, let's just say that, and it was kind of like an unknown game until Shadow of the Colossus came along. But all these years, I could have never imagined that an HD remake of Eco would ever come out. I thought it was done. It was sort of like it came out one-time release, and you never thought you'd see it again in any kind of sequel or anything. So let alone that they're doing an HD remake, but they're coming out with an updated collector's edition is just all I could have ever hoped for. So,
what's the date for that? Do you know exactly?
In Japan, I think it's September sometime.
Yeah,
Damn it, September, motherfucker.
Yeah.
September, because I haven't seen anything about, because I've gone to a couple game stores and I've made my reservation for the Dragon Quest 1, 2, 3 25th anniversary thing. I've made my reservation for Tales of Exilia, and I've not seen anything about the collectors or even for the games coming out or anything.
Well, in Japan, stores. I'm not sure if they're calling it. I'm not sure what they're calling it because I think that's the only way they're going to be selling it is both games separately.
Right. But and then I haven't seen any sort of slips.
Promotional stuff for it, yeah.
Because how you reserve things in Japan, there's these little slips that you fill out, and you just give your name and your number and stuff, and then you hand it to them. And on the slips, it has what game you want to reserve for. And I haven't seen anything for that. Either I'm just blind or I just haven't really noticed it. I should do that. But I'll check today. I'm gonna double check today. Because if it comes out in September, that's God damn it. Because there's like Exilia, the Dragon Quest special, Ao no Kiseki, and then that. God, motherfucking September. Damn it. So, yeah, okay.
Gonna be a busy September for you.
Busy Tokyo Game Show.
September's just always that month where all the RPGs just pile on. It's been like that for the last few years.
No, there's a couple things that came out in August. I don't know why September, though. September's such a bad time because summer vacation's going on right now. Why couldn't they do it now? No, they wait until school starts to... Damn it. So... But yeah, okay, so September 10th is that what was being thrown out there? Or something?
I believe, yeah, I could check. I believe that's the official date. I know it's coming out in the U.S. in September as well, but I don't care if it's a day before. I'm getting both because I want that special edition. Let me see here. You guys can continue talking, I guess, while I check this.
Okay. I would say... Greg, have you played both Eco and Shadow of the Colossus?
I have. It's a big deal. It's a big deal they're coming out because I actually did not. I actually played both of them, but I didn't finish both of them. I actually hired them both out,
Sinner.
and they kind of got rid of them just before I could get them again, and I just like, damn it. So it's gonna give me some closure for those games I sorely need, and I really enjoyed playing both of them. I liked Shadow of the Colossus. I liked Eco too, but I thought Eco was actually quite hard to just for me. And I thought, no, I got to get back and play it since they're just so beautiful. The spellbinding, artistic games, and I'm just glad that they were made. But more importantly, is I hope everyone goes out and buys the HD remix or the HD version, because ultimately that's going to be the funding towards The Last Guardian. So if you wanted The Last Guardian to come out, then go buy those
Which
games.
is delayed until 2012, which, you know what? Take all the time they need, because this game needs to be the best game ever made. So just take the time and put it out. But I wanted to say, too, what's killing me about the Eco Shadow of the Colossus collection is I usually tend to play these games maybe once every 2 years, once every year possibly. I try and, basically whenever I get the urge, and I have the urge. I've had the urge for the past year, and it's killing me because I don't want to play the PS2 versions. I've been waiting for the HD versions, so they can't come soon enough. Hopefully I'm still in the mood to play. I'm sure I will be, but I'm just very much looking forward to going back and playing them, especially Eco, because it's been quite a bit of time since I last played it.
It's been a long time too. Jesus, I'm trying to think. Oh.
And not only that, but they're really trying to make me happy because the Eco novel is getting translated for America.
Oh yeah, that's right. I remember I was trying to. Yeah, I was trying to. Like, I remember I kept on like sending you messages. Hey, do you want this book? Do you want this book? And you're like, it's in Japanese. I don't know.
Well, here's the thing. It can either be good or bad, because the greatest thing about Eco, and Shadow of the Colossus, but in this point Eco because it's a book about it, the greatest thing about that game is just you piece together the story on your own, and you kind of piece together what you think the game world is like outside of the castle, like how everything came to be, how Eco, why was he imprisoned in the castle, how did Yorda really, come to be imprisoned in the castle, the whole mysticism behind it all, and then basically this book comes along and explains it all to you. Now, it's not the official, Bible of Eco, it's actually just like a fan fiction by one author, sort of their take on the story of what Eco could have been like. But still, it could possibly ruin the experience in a way. I don't know. I'm still going to read it, though.
I was going to say, yeah, it is her interpretation of it, and she's actually she actually has a lot of novels that she has written that aren't like fan fiction, but are just kind of her own novels that a lot of people actually enjoy. So if anything, though it might kind of maybe not be what you imagine, it's a good read, I think. It's just nice to like see it. I don't know, just to see somebody else's interpretation of it and come out in words. At least that's my opinion. So.
Actually, while you were talking about your special editions, I was trying to eye through my collection to pick mine because it's a tough choice. I don't have many, but this won't surprise anyone. I think E7 is my favorite, just because of the content, the cloth map, the soundtrack, and the art book. It's just absolutely beautiful. But in terms of actual display, it just looks really awesome. In Australia, we got a special edition of Yakuza 4 that came in this giant Chinese takeaway box, and it is massive. Like, it towers over my Wii box. And it came with a rice bowl with Yakuza 4 on it, with some chopsticks that have Yakuza 4 on it, and a hostess calendar that pretty much tells you how to charm the hostesses.
I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I've felt kind of detached from any collector's editions that aren't for an RPG, because I'm getting sick and tired of the same old stuff of like a cheap little plastic figurine and just the typical stuff that they include. And they call them collector's editions, but for the most part they never turn out to be really collectible because they make too many. Look at Halo
Yeah.
collector's editions. Those things get sold cheaper than the actual game themselves. Stores try and liquidate them out of their store,
Yeah.
and they don't really receive the love and attention that, say Atlas and Xseed bring to their collector's editions. They do it, they add stuff in there that they truly, I don't know, they're different. It's two different collector's editions, and I've almost completely stopped buying collector's editions because not only are they big and bulky, and if you're buying a collector's edition, God forbid you throw away the box that it comes in. I just don't have the room to store them anymore, but they're it's like this is the collector's edition era where a big budget game, like almost everyone that comes out has to have a collector's edition, and I think it kind of ruins it. They should place a cap on them, like maybe 5,000 collector's editions for pre-orders like only or something, add some kind of really limited factor to it where, one that comes to mind that goes for super amounts of money is the Dead Space limited edition, which I don't know if you guys knew about it, but it was actually released only on I forget what website it was, but you can only order it online, probably through like EA's pre-order website or something. But the big fuss about it was actually everything that was included in this collector's edition you can physically buy separate. So the only unique thing about the collector's edition was the big box that it came in to house everything together. So it came with like a comic book and, art book and stuff, but you can get that all separate. But this collector's edition, before it came out, collectors were arguing, oh, it's not going to be worth anything, blah, blah, blah. Well, it comes out, and now this is one of the most expensive collector's editions out there. It actually sells on eBay now for anywhere between like $1,000 to $3,000.
Jesus Christ.
So those of the people out there that predicted it would be worth something and kind of bought a couple as an investment, I'm sure they're rolling in the dough right now.
God.
Oh dear.
That's insane. I do agree with you though. I'm like, even though I'm not living in the States right now, I get sick and tired of seeing there's just so many collector's editions of like shooters and things like that. It's nothing against shooters or anything like that. It's just kind of like, really? Cap it. For the love of God, cap it at like pre-orders or something. Like pre-orders is one thing, I could understand that. But when you have like collector's editions just sitting there on the shelf, no.
And they're charging obscene amounts for it, like what is it? Well, I just found out the price. The collector's edition for the Old Republic for Star Wars is $150. Now, granted, I just want to say I'm not quite sure what comes in this collector's edition, but for the love of God, like the prices that they charge for some of these collector's editions, it's kind of crazy. When you think about it, that's half a price of an Xbox right there. So
Yeah.
I'm very picky when it comes to what collector's editions I buy these days.
Yeah, they try to, sell that a little bit more without paying so much for production. Like I said before, on with the Yuxa 4-box set, you're absolutely right. The bowl is absolutely plastic. It's not really that great quality, but they did tack on like extra $20, so they got their money's worth. But more so with the sorry to interrupt you, but more so with the Ocarina of Time.
I was going to mention, that's what I was going to say.
Yeah, the Ocarina of Time edition that everyone across the globe sought after from Australia is, I opened that thing up, I was like,
It looks like
oh
one
my
of the
God.
biggest loads of shit I've ever
Yeah,
seen.
yeah, and I saw that symbol. It was like a kid's toy where they embed their company logo into the toy, and I'm just like, oh God, why? And I went to play it, and it tasted fucking awful. And it's just like, but I can't complain ultimately because I didn't pay anything extra.
Okay,
But
I was going to ask, like, I forget how much it was. In that case, it's okay, but if they're charging extra for a piece of plastic that's got, like, it's basically an advertisement for a company, then something's wrong.
one of the bad things about the 3DS I have to add is because of the region coding, I'm actually going to have to force to pay Australian prices because for most of my handhelds, I import because it's much cheaper, I get the game faster. But that means I'll have to cough out about $68 to get a 3DS game in
Whoa.
Australia because of the region coding. And to tell you the truth, I haven't got
Buy
a
a
3DS
US
yet.
3DS.
It's not that simple. I need to then get a transformer to cut
Yeah.
down the power. I still need to do that so I can import, because I really want to get some American consoles. Like I want to get an American PS2, I want to get a Japanese PS2 and all that. So I got to set myself up in the future. But for now, I'm just going to have to get a 3DS, and I've got Tales of the Abyss 3D to look forward to. I think that's when I'm going to buy my 3DS when that game comes out.
3DS. I've been on the fence about buying it, but like I really just I don't have any desire to buy it.
Just wait. I'd say wait. I mean, it's unless you have like a dying urge to play Zelda, I'd say just hold out. Wait for more games. Like they're finally starting to come out with some decent stuff. Like what is it? Devil Survivor, Shin Megami Tensei is finally coming out. The first RPG on the 3DS, at least over here.
Yeah, Overclocked is the remake of Devil Survivor, and I'm actually looking forward to playing that because I missed out on Devil Survivor. So
me too.
It'll be nice to play Overclocked.
So yeah, every time I see it in the stores, it mocks me. It's like, buy me, Taylor, and I'm like. Because I carry enough, I do this to myself. I very, like, self-destructive behavior. I carry enough money to buy it when I'm there. And I'm like, I should buy this. And so I have this, like, 5-minute battle within myself, and I'm just staring at the 3DS. I swear, people probably walk by like, what is this foreigner's problem? And I'm like, I pick it up, and I'm like, I should get it. No. You know. and like, the thing about, Ocarina of Time, it's not even my favorite Zelda game. Like, I don't mind the game. It was enjoyable, but it's not even like my favorite. Like my favorite's Link's Awakening.
That's one of my favorites. Yeah.
I love.
Link's. Yeah.
Rock, feather, jump and Link and slash, and there's just so many childhood memories from that game, and it's just like, for Ocarina of Time, it's like I'm fine. I don't know.
One thing I just want to add about the 3DS that everyone seems to not realize is everyone's too focused on the 3D. Everyone's too focused on the fact that 3DS is a 3D console. I don't give a shit about the 3D. All I care about is the 3DS. That people tend to forget this is the next step forward in tech. It literally is a portable GameCube where the DS was a portable N64 and a little bit more. A 3DS is a portable GameCube, and that's why I want to buy one. If you don't like the 3D, turn it off. There's a toggle there. People tend to forget that. I know I am. I can't stand 3D, so I'm pretty much going to turn that toggle off for everything.
And I'm kind of the opposite. I refuse to play with anything but Max 3D because I'm totally into the whole 3D aspect of it. Even though, some games it's totally not necessary and it actually makes some of them a little hard, possibly harder to play. Like I'm trying to play Ridge Racer for the first time, and it's like almost disorientating because it's so different. Like the first time you play it, it takes some getting used to. But what I was going to recommend to you, Taylor, have you ever played a Virtual Boy?
No, I have not.
Now take that money that you'd spend on a 3DS, find yourself a Virtual Boy, handful of games, and you'll have an amazing experience.
I don't think I've seen a Virtual Boy here.
So
unfortunately, well, the thing is, I've seen the what the heck is it? The oh god, what is it? The LT, what is it? The PC Engine LT, the super expensive handheld.
Yes, yeah,
I've seen those, and those are like stupid expensive. That is about that. I'm not changing this over properly, but let's just drop a couple zeros. It's like $700 for one. who fucking knows if it even works properly or not? Like, but yeah.
I'll just warn you though, if you ever come across in your travels, if you ever, I highly doubt you'll ever, see it for a cheap price, but the Virtual Boy in Japan had a couple of very, very rare exclusive games. If you ever see the Gundam game on Virtual Boy, pick that up. That game's worth about $800. And if you ever see, there's a game called Virtual Bowling. Not Nestor's Funky Bowling. Virtual Bowling, that's probably the most expensive Virtual Boy game, and I think it just sold on eBay recently in the US here for about $1,500, $1,800.
Good God.
So keep your eyes out.
Yeah.
I still can't get that image out of my head what my friend showed me yesterday on eBay. A signed copy of Tetris goes for $1 million.
Yeah,
They're
it's
asking.
they're asking. Yeah, they're not gonna get $1 million.
No,
$1 million.
No. I'm just like, wow.
That's unless it shat gold, I would
Well,
not be
apparently,
investing in that.
well, apparently someone offered him $20,000. I would have said, fuck it. No, don't sell it for that. But I'm guessing he's holding out.
Whatever.
He's gonna end up paying more in listing fees for that than just sell it.
Jeez, man, that's good God. Well, like I don't know if you've seen this, Pete, but there's a Maximum Carnage.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I have a picture of this up on my Facebook. Well, maybe I don't. I don't know. But Maximum Carnage in Japan. Guess how much it goes for? You have an idea?
No idea.
It's $1,000.
What?
You know what's funny about that? Every time someone does a Super Potato video, I always see it there with that gigantic sign saying the price 1,000, and I'm just like, it's always there. It has not moved for the last 3
God.
years.
You're talking about that game on like Genesis or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was common here, but
Yeah, the game that you could pick up for like $5 elsewhere runs you 1,000 here. I seen that. I was like, Jesus fucking no, not happening.
I just like the different cultures, how the games we sought after are really cheap. Like a friend of mine on YouTube picked up Police Noughts for 100 yen. That fucking blows my mind, because that game goes for about $60 to $100, and he got that for $1. Jesus Christ. And like he picked up other Square soft games like Parasite Eve and I can't remember, that was Bushido Blade. They were all 100 yen too at Bookshop. I'm just like, wow, I should really save up the money and go to Japan so I can just clear out the games, and also I get a really good trip out of it as well.
Exactly.
Well, one of the conversations I've had with many friends is I've been trying to get a group together based off YouTubers across the world to go to Japan, and right now I don't have the money to try and attempt something that massive, but it's in the cards, and I've got many friends that have been pestering me to go, and I want to go more than anything. So
doesn't it kill you when you see like a video of when people go into like the Japanese game stores and they have those bins with the little bundle packages wrapped in like clear plastic of like 5 RPGs for $5?
Yeah, a cheaper Kante Dan, they got all those big it's like one of the biggest warehouses around, and it's got that great section with all those lucky dips, like you said, and the ridiculous cardboard boxes with the badly taped, and you can see through them, you can peek through them and go, oh, this is what's in there.
I've come to the conclusion that in Japan, to have a used game store, it is a prerequisite to have a barrel of pretty much mint copies of Chrono Trigger just there to sell. I mean, I swear, like, you see, like, 6 or 7 copies of it, and they're all, like, really, really, really nice condition, and they're only, like, 500 yen. It's just, like... So
500 yen, for those that don't know, is like $5.
Right. Well, it's a little bit more now, because of how...
Yeah. Well, that's true.
Yeah, it's the greenback's doing
the easiest way to look at it.
Yeah. Just drop a couple zeros. So, but one last thing. I know you when I was talking to you earlier, Pete, you weren't going to purchase it, or at least I'm trying to convince you. That's why I constantly keep on mentioning it. But the Dragon Quest 25th anniversary is actually, it happened in Japan. Like technically, I believe the game came out originally in May, back in '86. So, but and the game comes out on the 15th for the Wii, and the trailer for Dragon Quest 7, Dragon Quest 10. And also there's going to be a couple other things with it. As far as I know, there's a one of those medallions, the small medals, is coming with it as well.
Yep.
I'm trying to
Let me ask this though. Now, I haven't kept up on my Dragon Quest 10 lingo, but is there any information out there in terms of what the game is going to be like, or any leaked screenshots whatsoever?
No,
Oh.
like there was like no information for about 2 years, and then after a concert with Koichi Sugiyama in Japan, where he did a concert dedicated to Dragon Quest III's music, he just let out like a tidbit of information about what he was working on. So they're well in development of the game, but no, they've kept it well under wraps, and we'll probably only see it when September hits. And trust me, Dragon Quest VIII is my favorite game on the PS2, and I've been hoping for a game that's like that. It's just that's what I'm hoping Dragon Quest X is going to be.
You know, I wouldn't get your hopes up because 9 was, well, then again, you know what? I take that back because look at what 9 was supposed to be, and then look
Yeah.
at what they turned it back into after the fans sort of went crazy. Could you imagine if they released that game as an action RPG? People in Japan would have went crazy.
Crucified them. Well, the thing
Yeah.
is 10's going to be on the Wii, and online's not their strongest point. So,
Please,
we're
no waggle, please.
yeah, bloody friend codes. But yeah, like I said, I just think for 9, it's great, but being a multiplayer game by itself, and maybe they'll revisit that style of play with 11 when it comes to that. But I'm looking for like just another massive single player experience like 8. That's what I'm hoping 10
I
will
would
be.
love something like, especially because the Wii is severely lacking any type of turn-based RPGs beyond like the Tales that's on there and Arc-Rise Fantasia, Opuna. I don't know, am I missing any other ones? There's really not many out there.
That's
That's about it.
the solid turn-based RPGs. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I'm kind of, this is my hope for 10, is that I'm hoping Dragon Quest X has a story as engrossing as Dragon Quest V's was.
Mm.
So I don't know. Have you played 5, Pete?
I have it, but I have yet to play it because I kind of felt guilty because I bought it a little bit before 9 came out,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, you know what? I can't flip-flop between two different games because I played 4, I love 4, and then I started playing 9, and I'm like, I can't go back to 5, which I've been meaning to go back and try and play 5, but I've honestly heard so many mixed things about 5. I've heard some people hate it, and then I've
Really?
heard that some people
Mm.
call it their favorite Dragon Quest game.
Well, those who hate it, I wonder. Like I don't.
They're heartless.
Well, I'm not. I'm trying to think because how it works is like for a lot of it, you can you recruit monsters for your party because you only have certain characters with you.
That might be why they
So-
probably don't care for it. So
But it's the journey in itself. Like
Mhm.
for me, story's the most important thing in an RPG. So I can kind of let some other things slide, and that one was just so epic.
You want to see the hero persevere because of what happens to him, you know?
Right, and
Right,
you're just like just the whole time you just filled with vengeance, and you're just like. It's really, really, really good.
Yeah, that's one of the few RPGs where I did want to just find the villain and fight him. It's one of those very few because of just what happens in the game. And I highly recommend 5. It's one of my favorites.
but that's the problem with doing an RPG podcast. I don't like Greg. You're starting one up on your own. I don't know how the hell you're gonna do that on a weekly basis and not be tempted to start up so many RPGs every time. Like just doing this podcast has reminded me about so many games that I want to go back and play, but just lack the time to do so. RPGs are dangerous. What can you say? They take up so much time.
They're dangerous if you got a job, which sadly I don't have right now. I'm looking for a new one, so in my spare time I can brush off the old RPG or two, but I've also got my YouTube channel and now a podcast. But I've got that one game that I want to play, which is Shining Force 3. I've in the third and final scenario, and that's the game I want to play, and then there'll be others that I also want to play, but more so to review them, which is what I'm playing right now for that.
I was about to say, did you want to give a heads up for this RPG podcast you are working on there?
Yes, my good friend Aerodynamic on YouTube, he collects a lot of RPGs like myself, and we've just finished recording the first episode of the podcast known as RP Gibberish. It's not up yet. Aerodynamic is organizing the YouTube. He's going to upload it to YouTube, and I'm organizing the website where you can download it. So that will be happening in the next couple of weeks.
And it's going to be a weekly podcast?
We're aiming for that, and we're trying to get on at least one guest each episode where we're going to talk about a specific game or a specific series or a specific company, and we might do some weird episodes, but I know that when we've got a Fire Emblem episode in the works, and we know that we're going to try and get you on, good sir.
Good old Fire Emblem.
Yes.
Slimes. You should just do a podcast. I should do a podcast about slimes. Talk about slimes.
You should do a YouTube show about slimes.
I should. That's actually not a bad idea. Just, oh man, that's another thing about the 25th anniversary. There's so much slime stuff now, and like, oh, god damn it. And Luida's Bar. I think I'm gonna like pound down slimes because they have these slime kind of what are they?
Buns.
Meat buns. Yeah, and it's just, oh, damn it.
Slime merchandise is so funny because the slime, like the typical blue slime, how many, like, he's so simple, like just the design of him. It's not like, say, Sonic the Hedgehog where, you know, he just had his 20th anniversary and they're coming out with merch for that, and it's like, you know, it's quite unique and different because the character is easy to pose in the different ways. But the slime, it's like the same thing over and over and over. So it's so funny how they can keep repeating that same character in so many different pieces of merchandise.
And get away with selling it.
And get away with it,
yeah. Yeah, because you have like the slime drinks, the slime speakers, all the plushies, all the silverware, the bangs. It's just, oh god damn it.
I just want a metal slime, so it just reminds me of my favorite pastime in Dragon Quest games, just chasing after those goddamn things.
It's funny when I was first trying to think of a name with Johnny for Ulgin Gamers, I was going through things in my head, and I'm like, how about we call it A Podcast Appears, sort of as a little in-joke as to a slime appears.
Nice.
But then it was a little too obscure, and it was sort of leaning a little too much towards RPGs, so we kind of ditched that.
Did you ever see the T-shirt that for Johnny's T-shirt contest?
Yes. Oh, yes, I've seen that.
Okay.
I've got mine.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I was about to say, kind of reached a point to kind of wrap this up and everything. So, yeah, Greg, thank you for stopping in once again. so,
it's always a pleasure.
Yeah, it's always fun chatting with you. And Pete, thank you for stopping by and lending me some of your time, since I know you are a busy individual.
No, it was a lot of fun, and I always like talking RPGs for sure. I know it's a little hard to do on my podcast because it's really only me and Johnny, the hardcore RPG players. Mr. Heine and Gamester, they're a little, you know, they like their RPGs, but we're slowly trying to coax them into them a little bit more.
Slowly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was gonna say, final words. Anything you guys want to add or say? No, yes, no.
Well, it's very, very glad to have Pete on, because I watch LGen games religiously, and I did in the beginning watch it just for Pete and Johnny because I'm a big fan of their YouTube channels, and they're both big RPG fans. What's really funny is I've noticed there's one RPG for John Gamester and Jason Heine. Jason usually mentions Chrono Trigger, and Gamester usually mentions
Final Fantasy IV.
So at least I could say they like one RPG, so
yes.
So I can say that, but yeah, I'm very happy to be with Pete and always with Taylor, because I always like talking to people about RPGs, and there's just so much to talk about. I have no doubt that one day I'm going to talk about roguelikes with Pete to the end of day, because
it's such a different genre, and I guess I'll make that one of my last words is, if you have not played a roguelike game, it's sort of like a subgenre of RPGs. I recently got into them probably within the last, let me say 4 years, because my first roguelike was on the Wii, which was about, that game came out maybe, you know what, let me correct myself. I think that game came out maybe 3 years ago. I can't quite remember, but that was my first one. And a roguelike is basically an RPG where death resets you to level 1 most of the time, and you lose all of your equipment. So the way I like to look at it is, it's sort of like a puzzle game, or think of it like a Mario game with one life, where instead of using, a platformer character or your Tetris blocks for your one life, you use an RPG character. So you level this character up and, you try and get him the best equipment, and that one moment where you screw up and you die, back to square one. So it's unlike anything you can play in terms of RPGs, because the attachment to your character and the progression of your character is so deep, and death is like anything, it's unlike anything else. And I'd suggest trying it out. If you sort of want a nice one to start with, that's not too hardcore, and if you're a fan of Final Fantasy, I think you'll really enjoy it, especially for the fan service. If you have a Wii, check out, what is it, Final Fantasy Fable Chocobo Dungeon.
Oh, Dungeon.
Excellent game, excellent soundtrack. And if you're a Final Fantasy fan, I think you'll really enjoy that. But my final word is 11, 11, 11. And that's what I gotta say. You know. If you know what that is, you know. So that's what I gotta say.
So, all right. So thank you both for coming. It was fun chatting with you guys. So yeah, and I hope everybody who's listening enjoyed the chat as well. And if you have any sort of questions or whatnot, please tell us, ask us. Yeah. So that's it. Thanks guys, and have a good day.
See ya.
Thanks, guys.